Hi guys, Dave Wilson here again, and today I really believe this is going to be one of my best videos ever. You're going to really love this, great project. We're going to be doing a little manufacture, there's going to be some repairs, full refurbishment. It's a fabulous project and it's a really interesting thing. So, got something really interesting to show you over here. So, sit back, grab a drink, follow me. Okay guys, check this out. It's a solid silver horse and carriage. So like I say, it's sterling silver. Yeah, you can see the hallmarks there. Okay, just a little bit of information on what the marks are here. So it's Sheffield 1909, so it's over 100 years old. So this is the crown mark for Sheffield. We've got the lion for sterling silver and this Gothic style lowercase r in a hexagon, so that tells us that it's 1909. But here's the interesting thing with this. When I first saw it, I didn't think it was English. I thought it might be Eastern, India, Pakistan, possibly even Egypt. Kind of a tourist piece. So I was really surprised to see English hallmarks. But the maker is Samuel Boyce Landeck, or Samuel Boaz Landeck, which makes me laugh because that name means something to my friend and maybe some of you guys out there. But here's the thing, he's listed as an importer of silver, importer of foreign silver, and also on the hallmark there is an F in an oval, which means foreign. So although this has got English hallmarks on it, this was not made in England, this was foreign and it was imported. So, who made it? I don't know, I've no idea. I have seen a similar one listed and they said it was Dutch. So, do you know where this was made? I don't. If you do, leave me a comment in the description below. Anyway, back to the restoration. So obviously the first problem is it's absolutely black and tarnished, but not concerned about that. We're going to polish it up later and get it really nice and shiny, so stay to the end. But we need to do a couple of repairs first. Firstly, there's a set of reins. Now they go through the horse's mouth there and they go through up to his hand. So that's easy, we can just use some silver wire for that. Now, I did some research and I found some similar horse and carriages. What he has in his hand is a whip. I'll show you a picture of that. So that would make sense that that had a long whip coming out of his hand and that got caught and snapped off. So the wheels are a little bit wonky, but we can sort those out. But the big problem with this job is here. You see we're missing a wheel. And if you look underneath, we can see that the axle's bent, and if I pull that wheel off, let's just zoom in, so you can see that's the axle there where I've just taken the wheel off, and you see here the wheel's missing but the axle's broken as well, so I need to replace the axle there and we need to make another one of these wheels. Now it's going to be a lot easier to work on this without the horse rattling around, and it's simply attached with a rivet there, just a piece of silver bar that's been peened over. So I can just get some cutters. There we go. So we can put the horse to one side for the moment and we can just concentrate on sorting out this wheel. So I think this was cast. Now I don't have mould making and lost wax casting equipment, but I do have some Delft clay. So let's see if we can sandcast the wheel. Follow me. So these are a couple of little casting rings, and this is Delft clay, which is a bit of a strange term because it's not really clay, it's just sand. with a kind of oil which binds it together. So basically it's sand casting, that's what we're doing. So just packing the sand in nice and tightly there, and then scrape it off with a steel rule. So we've got a nice flat surface. Okay, now we place the wheel in, and we need to push that in firmly. Now cover it in some talc, and that acts as a release agent. That stops the sand from sticking to it. And put the other half in. Okay, now there's a little mark there, so we pop that on and we line up both sides so I can find the mark. There we go. And now it's just a case of filling up that top one there. So here's some that I've run through a sieve. So this is nice and fine sifted sand, and this will get into all the little details. So we'll pour in some of that, and we'll just hammer that down so it fills all the details. And it's just a case of filling up the rest of the canister. And then whacking it with the hammer to get it nice and tight. Really packed in all the way around that wheel. Lovely. I now need to separate the two halves, and it's very important that I do this straight, you know, because if I twist it, obviously I'll damage the mould inside. So very carefully open it, and then if I use some tweezers I can just pull out the wheel there, and you can see the two parts of the mould there. Lovely. So we've got a mould now, but I need a way to get the silver in. So I'm going to go in the middle there, so you see where the hub is there. That's what I'm going to use to pour the silver in. So got a little spiky tool. So right in the middle of the hub there, and I'm going to go through. So that's my hole there, but of course that's too small, so what I need to do now is just very carefully carve out a funnel shape. So hopefully you can see that there, that's the funnel there, and it goes through there into the mould. Now when I pour the hot silver into the mould, all the air that's in this void will need to escape. Now if I don't let it escape, then what will happen is you get air bubbles and you get an incomplete mould at the end, so it doesn't work very well. So I need to make channels. So I can do that with the scriber here, just make little channels to the edge, and those channels will allow that gas to escape. So just cutting a couple of lines there. I've got the mould in two halves there. I've got little chimneys to let the gas out, and I've got my funnel there to pour the silver in. So put it back together. You can see that there. Just get it lined up. So that's the mould made. Let's go melt some silver, see if it works. Over here. And let's get melting. Okay, that's looking about molten now, so let's give it a go. You only really get one shot at this, so nice and quick, don't mess about. Okay, a little bit messy, not worried about that. So you can see that we've filled up the funnel there, so hopefully that's gone down inside and filled up our mould. So let's stick it in some water, quench it, and then we'll see what we've got. So just swing the light over. Yeah. So here it is out of the sand. I've still got the sprue attached. As I thought, I've missed that little section there. Okay, so this is what we've got. You can see the cone there where the silver went in. All these little arms, these are those chimneys, the air vents. But if we look at the casting itself, let me zoom in so you can see it. Okay, it looks a mess, but I'm really happy with this. A couple of things. I've got all the spokes, so that's not too bad. I need to do a bit of clean up inside them, but that's not a problem. Clean those up with a drill and a file. And importantly, I've got all of the rim. So I just need to saw off the channel there. You know, I'm quite pleased with that. I think that saved us a lot of work. So let's get it onto the bench, do some cleaning. So, start filing. Well, at least it's round, which is what a wheel should be. I'm going to put a saw inside these little voids now and try and take up that flashing out. So I need to drill a hole there so I can get the saw blade in, and while I'm at it I will also drill that central hole there for the axle. So in order to keep it straight, piece of scrap wood with a little hole in it. So what I can do is I can just pop that there and that'll keep it nice and flat while I drill it. So this here is a corded Dremel 4000, and this is the Dremel drill press stand, and it's really brilliant for drilling vertical holes like that. So I just keep this permanently set up on my bench here with a little drill in it. Well, that's it all cut out. Not looking too bad. We're getting there, we're getting there. Unfortunately, now for the tedious bit. So I've got a set here of diamond coated bits. You see, like little diamond files. And I've got all different kinds of shapes. So for example, I've got some, where is it? I've got some rounded ones. So these might be good for getting into the corners, these triangular shapes, and rounding them off. So it's just a case of grinding away, really. So just grinding on the corners there, rounding them off, trying to get them all equal. So full and gentle with it, just working my way around. So I'm just going along the edges of the spokes there, just redefining that edge so the rim is visible. So I'm just grinding. It's a small detail, but it does make a big difference. Okay, so what I've just been doing there is, this is the remains of a very thin little grinding disc, and I've just been going over the spokes, because if you notice on the original here, there's no distinction between the spokes and the hub, and the top of the spokes are flat. So all I've done is just gone round and just sanded the top of the spokes flat and blend them into the hub. I think we're almost there. I'm just going to give this a quick gentle polish now, just to get rid of the sanding marks, and I think we're there. So here it is out the tumbler. I've just given it a proper polish and clean up. And you know what? It's not bad. Before I put the wheel on, I need to address the axle. You'll notice here that that's the original one, that the old one came off. You see the axle there, but if you look at the top, can you see the top axle's broken off, which is probably why the wheel was missing. So I need to just file down that little nub there. Okay, that's nice and flat now, so let's go and solder this axle on. Follow me. Here we are at the soldering station, what I call my dirty bench, because this is the bit that gets filthy. We've got the carriage there. Now, I'm going to use extra easy solder wire. It comes on a roll like this. This is 1mm wire, but this is extra easy, so this is the lowest temperature solder you can get. And the reason for that is quite simple. I don't know how this thing was made, so I don't want to take any chances. So by using extra easy solder, I'm reducing my risk of doing any damage or desoldering any other parts. So flux my little axle, flux the solder, and flux the chassis where I'm going to solder. And then let's warm it up. So just warming up that bit of the chassis there. Lots of flux on it, of course. And I'll pick up my bit of extra easy solder wire, so I'll just ball it up and pick it up with the pick there. Notice as well that I'm directing my flame away from the carriage, so I'm not going to cause any damage, because like I said, I don't know how it was built in the first place. So I'm just going to heat that up and just melt that little ball of solder on the top there, and I can pop the axle on. So I've just about got the solder melting on top of that chassis now, so align the axle, just get that solder to run, and then I think we're there. That's nice and solid now, soldered on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to do a little bit of filing round there, just to get that nice and flush, so that the wheel goes all the way down. There we go, that's looking nice. And I've just cleaned up the other end a little bit too, so we can get that wheel back on. Okay, that's not looking too bad. So I'm going to clip that now, just a couple of millimetres past the wheel. Just smooth off that end. You see now I've got it on a steel bench block, and the axle is poking out at the bottom there and at the top, so that is resting on the bench block there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a very small ball peen hammer here, and I'm just going to tap that. And the idea of that is that this small ball, if I tap it right in the middle, it's going to mushroom that out, and it's going to fix that on. And I'll flip it over and do the old wheel on the other side. So it's just a case of just gently tapping until that wheel starts to tighten up. Okay, so that's the wheels on. A little bit stiff yet, these back wheels. I can loosen them up later. I might need to do some adjustments later on, but they're on and they're fairly straight, or as straight as I can get them. So yeah, not too bad. The main thing is it stands up now. Okay, so next thing is, let's have a look at this guy's hand. If we look closely at his hands, we can see this hand here, the left hand, it's got a hole that goes all the way through it. This is for the reins. I'll show you that in a second. But his right hand, I thought it was broken off, but on closer inspection it's not broken off. I can kind of show you. Okay, can you see that there? There was something in that hand there. So the question is, what? Well, this is a photograph that I found of the closest example. Let's just pop it in front there for reference. And you can see in his right hand there, he's holding a whip. Okay, now let me show you this other photograph, which is a bit more zoomed in. Okay, so again, this is sort of facing the other way around there, and you can clearly see here the reins go through the horse's mouth, through the little harness on its back, and they go to his left hand. So that's what the hole is for in his left hand. And in his right hand you can see this curled whip. So I need to make a whip like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to file the edges off this and taper it so it goes thinner towards the end. Just resting it on the bench peg there, and then go along and filing. So I've tapered it down and I've given it a good polish with some very fine emery. This is just a sanding sponge, because obviously once I've curled it round it's going to be difficult to get the tool marks out. So I'm using some stepped round pliers here, and it really is a matter of just kind of just bending it really until it looks right. You know, there's no specific rule to this, but I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to wrap the end of this tail round the handle there, which is what the others look like. So just wrapping that end round, nice and gentle, nice and gentle. Just a little squeeze there. So look at it sideways. See? Yeah, there we go. Let's get it soldered on. Brilliant. Now, as you can see, this is very, very tarnished. I'll polish it up at the end, but I do need to make sure that that hand, the inside of his hand there, is nice and clean so I can solder it. So I've just got a little diamond burr here, and I'm just going to clean the inside of his hand there. Just get it back to burr metal so I get a nice good solder joint. There you go. You see that now? See the inside of his hand now? Nice and clean. So let's go and solder it. So I think that's just about done now. And again, I've used easy solder on that, then I don't damage anything else. So we'll put that in the piddle just to clean off the flux. While we're at it now, because we've done all the repairs, I'm going to put the horse in there as well. You can see it's really black, so that's going to start to clean it up. So let's pop that in, and we'll leave those in there for a while. So they've been sat in the piddle pot overnight, and you can see the carriage has come up a little bit better. The lid's still quite tarnished, the wheels are tarnished, and the horse isn't really any different to when I put it in. So the next stage is to polish and clean everything up, because it's easier to do that before I attach it. See, once I attach it and put the reins on, it's going to be really awkward, so get it all polished up beforehand. So the next stage then is the magnetic polisher. So this is the herb magnetic polisher, so I'll pop that in there, and the little horsey. And this is filled with steel pins and soapy water. And when I switch it on, you'll see all the pins move round and vibrate, and they will get in all those little areas and hopefully get it nice and shiny. So let's leave that running, and it is a bit noisy. Well, that's looking a bit better. It's had about 2 hours in the magnetic polisher. Still a little bit of tarnish just on the roof, so I might just give that little buff, just absolute final thing. Okay, so we've got the horse. I've just put a little piece of wire in there, a little pin. So pop that in there. So I've put my steel block on my bench pin there, just so I can get underneath it and just a little bit of support. And then, as before, it's just a few light taps just to mushroom that out. I don't need much because I still want it to swivel. There we go. That's nice. So the last thing, let's put some reins on. So I've got some 0.8 silver wire here, and this is a needle, so it's very soft. So if I get a loop that goes from his head up to his hand, nylon jaw pliers, and just pull it through nice and tight, just to keep it nice and straight. There we go, through the horse's mouth. Get it roughly in the centre, so I'll thread that through there. and then just pull that through. Okay, the same on this side, feed it through and just grab it with the pliers and just pull it through. And like I said, this is very soft annealed wire, so it bends very easily. So just pull that through. And then you remember that hole in his left hand there. So just adjusting the range there. I want it a little bit slack, you know, not too tight, so it kind of looks like it's hanging down. Now they're really tight, so they're absolutely not going anywhere, so I don't need to solder them or anything. So we'll just snip the ends there. And just a few little adjustments there. I want them nice and smooth, I don't want any kinks in them. Okay, final thing, I'm just going to give it a very light buff. I've got a nice new mop here, and I'm just going to buff that roof there, just get rid of that last little bit of tarnish. So, join me in a second for the big reveal. Okay. This has been an incredible amount of work, a lot more than what you've actually seen on camera. Here we go. Isn't it lovely? The reins in his hand. The new whip. The new wheel. In fact, if I'm being honest, I don't actually know which is the wheel I made, because they've been on and off several times during the repair process. And the top, show you inside it. And the lid just attaches with a little clip at the front. Not very secure, but I guess it's not meant to be. There we go. Another job well done. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that. Check out the rest of the channel. Hundreds of videos on jewellery making, tricks, tips, techniques, demos, tool reviews, absolutely everything you ever wanted to know about jewellery making and silversmithing. So, hit the subscribe button, come and join us, be part of the family. So, thanks for watching. I've been Dave Wilson, and I'll see you real soon on the next video. Bye for now.